Hey friends, good morning. It's already chapter 4 of Retired Plus Free, The Unconventional Path to Financial Certainty and Fulfillment by Pedro Adao and Ramie Khalil. Chapter 4 is The Fox Guarding the Hen House. Pedro, remember the day I met Jane. She walked in with her portfolio that was managed by a well-known money manager who spends millions of dollars investing on TV, advertising on TV, and buying internet ads. Jane is 68 years old, already retired, and is drawing $3,000 a month out of her $750,000 portfolio to pay her bills. When I asked her about her account, she told me that it was being conservatively managed. I've seen quite a bit in my practice, but this was a first for me. Jane, at age 68, who is already taking money out every month, had 90 friends, of her life savings invested in the stock market. When I asked her about her account and about the 60 or so stocks she owned, she couldn't tell me really anything about them. She insisted that she didn't want to lose any money and that she had made this clear to her advisor. Yet, to her surprise, her entire account was invested in stocks during a time when the market had recently hit record all-time highs. If the all-time record highs of the summer of 2017 did not represent the right time to lock in and protect some of Jane's gains, I wonder if Jane's advisor ever plans on getting her out of the market. Do you think a retired 68-year-old should be investing the same way as a 30-year-old? Yeah, me neither, but regrettably, we see it every day. While I hadn't yet had a chance to review Jane's entire plan put together by her advisor, it still seemed off that an account with such a large amount of money coming out each month represents over 90% of Jane's life savings would be so aggressively invested. One of the most common things we hear people say over and over is no risk, no reward. Maybe, like most people we talk to, you've heard that so many times you just believe it without question. And while the saying no risk, no reward might be true, one thing we have learned is that not all risk is equal. It is important for individuals to be able to assess that downside of the risk exposure they are taking in relation to the upside reward potential they hope to make. In our experience, this is a concept that gets past the typical long-term saver and investor who's just bought into the idea of staying fully invested no matter what is happening in the markets. At times like now, January 2022 is when this is re-released. When the stock market is hovering near record all-time highs, many of the fundamental indicators, such as the price to earnings ratios and dividend yields, seem to be telling investors to be careful, that there might now be a higher risk of losing money than the potential of making money. If these indicators could talk, I imagine they would be reminding us of the last time both price to earning ratios on the S&P 500 were this high and the dividend yields were this low was right before the 2008 stock market crash. Wall Street firms make money by charging you fees when your accounts go up and also when they go down. Wall Street firms operate and profit by charging fees to investors' accounts when the customer is making money and when the customer is losing money. So in bull markets and bear markets, in good times and bad, the investment firms and the advisors continue to collect fees. Therefore, the longer you leave your money in the market, the more money the investment makes for the firm. Time is always on the side of the investment firm. Hopefully, you have a great advisor who meets with you regularly, who proactively communicates and ensures that the appropriate changes are made in response to changes in the market and in your life. Unfortunately, many people we've spoken with never received a call or were advised to sell and lock in any of the gains they earned prior to or during the tech bust of 2000 or during the financial crisis of 2008. Despite what advisors tell you, and regardless of their potential legal fiduciary obligation to do what is in the best interest of their clients, we believe you as the consumer should always stay vigilant to ensure that what is happening with your account lines up with your risk tolerance and what you believe to be in your best interest. How can this be, you ask? Well, it is because a classic rule of thumb that used to be widely shared to help protect you and other investors like you from taking too much risk is being completely ignored. What is this classic rule of thumb? It is called the rule of 100. The rule of 100, it's likely that years ago you heard the well-known rule of thumb identified as the rule of 100. The reason you might not remember it is because it isn't discussed as much these days in financial articles and publications. What traditionally used to be a sound rule of thumb, widely used by financial advisors, appears to have fallen out of favor in recent years. The rule of 100 was created to help people determine how much of their money can be in risky investments like stocks and bonds and mutual funds, and how much should be more stable and guaranteed funds where their principal is protected. The rule of 100 works this way. Take the number 100, subtract your age, and that determines the percentage of your money that can be at risk. Let's look at an example. If you're 60, then take 100 minus 60 equals 40. Therefore, 40% of your investments can be at risk, and 60% of your principal should be protected and guaranteed. We rarely see couples or individuals with portfolios even close to this rule of thumb. In our view, they are almost always much more aggressive than they ought to be at this time when they might least afford to suffer a loss should the market correct. Remember, the rule of 100 is a rule of thumb, and your ideal asset allocation might need to be different. Depending on a number of unique factors, what makes the most sense for you might be something different than what the rule of 100 suggests. This is something that should be reviewed with a financial professional. You might be wondering why you aren't hearing more about this rule of 100. Some financial writers suggest that since people are living longer, the rule of 100 is outdated. Some suggest it should be increased to the rule of 110 or 120, and we've even seen some articles suggesting the rule of 130. Again, we don't mean to sound like a broken record. However, let's not forget the business model of the investment firms. It might be that we are hearing less about the rule of 100 because the more money left invested in the market, the more investment firms are able to charge. While some financial advisors do a great job of managing money for their clients in a sound and responsible manner, not all money managers and brokerage firms have a significant financial incentive to help clients maintain the appropriate amount of diversification and principal protection. What's with all the fees? One day we met Randy and his wife Sue. The names have been changed to protect the innocent. We're introduced to help them by one of their associates. They were looking to better understand the financial products they own now that they were fast approaching retirement and were unsure as to how they were going to be receiving income. During our meeting, Randy showed us an account that he had, a rollover 401k account from a previous employer 5 years ago. The account happened to be a variable annuity with major financial institution that heavily advertises on television, one you would most likely recognize the name of. As our normal practice, we asked Randy to tell us why he purchased the product, what he liked about it, and to describe in his own words how the product worked. What happened is what usually happens when we meet clients who own these types of products. Randy was unable to tell us what he really liked about the account, other than what he was told that his money was guaranteed. When we asked Randy if his advisor had discussed the fees with him, this is when the conversation got interesting. Absolutely. I hate fees, Randy said. He went on to say that he asked his advisor about the fees on 3 separate occasions to make sure he knew what was going on. And each time, Randy was assured by his advisor that the annual fee in the account was only $40 per year. However, given the size of the account, the company was going to waive the annual fee. Given our experience, we didn't think Randy was given the whole story about the fees. So we asked Randy if it would be all right if we placed a call to the customer service department together. We could ask some questions on his behalf to help him better understand exactly how much he was actually paying in fees. Insisting that he wasn't paying any fees, Randy begrudgingly agreed to call the company. Once we got through to a representative, we were able to ask 3 questions to the customer service agent on a recorded line that took all of about 2 minutes. At that moment, for the first time, Randy learned the whole story about his account. Unfortunately, it wasn't good news for him. Randy learned that he was paying $3.75 per year in fees on his $800,000 in IRA, which totals out to $30,000 a year in fees. Interestingly enough, on that same call, we were told that there actually was an annual fee of 40, but it was being waived because of the size of the account. Do you think Randy cared more about the $40 annual fee or the 30,000 in fees he was paying each year and had been paying for the last 5 years since he'd opened the account? Randy had been charged close to 150,000 in fees over 5 years, while the entire time believing he was paying no fees. These might have been the two most valuable minutes of Randy's life. We wish we could tell you Randy's situation was an isolated case. We've only been seen happen once or twice. Sadly, we regularly meet with people who own products they think work one way, but in reality are entirely different than what they think. So why are we telling this story? Remember when Randy asked his advisor about the fees? His advisor said the annual fee is 40 and it is going to be waived for you. Was Randy's advisor lying when he said that? Technically, no, because it was in fact true. There was an annual fee of $40 that was being waived. This is what we call a half truth. And this type of communication is rampant in the financial industry. In our opinion, a half truth is a whole lie. Our opinion, Randy's advisor did not provide his client with the full story regarding the fees in the account. Instead of telling his client the whole story about the fees and fully disclosing them, he told them a half truth. Based on that half truth, Randy decided to buy a product that he told us he would have never purchased had he understood it would cost him $2,500 a month in fees, which, by the way, was more than the mortgage payment on his beautiful waterfront home. Randy had owned this account for 5 years. Therefore, over the 5 years he owned the account, the fees taken out of the account totaled $150,000, which happened to be more than 5 times what Randy had actually earned since opening the account. Are we saying all financial advisors and insurance agents are crooks and liars? Of course not. We personally know many high integrity and reputable financial and insurance professionals. However, we see cases like Randy's every day. Sadly, we believe we might be in an era of the half truth. Before purchasing a financial product, we highly recommend carefully review the key terms regarding the risk, the fees, the penalties, and any other terms and conditions represented by that investment. Request and require a complete review of the disclosures and prospectus from the financial professional you're working with prior to purchasing any financial product. In an article titled Why Mutual Funds Cost More Than You Think, it is shown how the average mutual fund costs up to 3.17% a year. When we ask potential clients how much they think they're paying in fees, they either say they're not sure or they think it's about 1%. It's going to be much harder to accumulate money when a 3.1% per year is leaking out of your bucket in up markets as well as down markets. Yes, these costs are incurred and come out of your account even when the market is down and your account is going down. Take a look at the following chart to see why fees might represent one of the major holes in your retirement bucket. I'll put a little note on the recording about this chart. One of the main objectives of Retired and Free is to free you from the half-truths, the myths, the misconceptions that you might have come to believe about your accounts. In this account, it shows a sizable account of 100,000 versus 500,000, and it shows fees over 10 years. In the $100,000 account, there's fees of 31,700. In the $250,000 account, there's fees of 79,250. And in the $500,000 account, there's fees of over 150,000. In the next chapter, we'll discuss how and where you might have picked up some of these myths, misconceptions, and half-truths, as well as how to protect yourself from the risks of market losses, taxes, and fees. This chapter was very eye-opening for me when I first read it because I remember the day when I found out how much I was paying in fees in my 401k. Now, obviously, I didn't really have a lot of choice. That was the only thing that my employer was offering. But when I found out I was paying 1% in fees, even when the market was going down and I was losing, that was really eye-opening. So I hope this has been helpful. We'll see you in the next chapter.